Um, Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for letting us join in your presentation, and thank you, Matthew, for inviting me to join with you and your support in our Smart Cities Initiative. So I'm Jennifer Russell, the chair of the INCOSE Smart Cities Initiative, and we are here today to give you a little insight into how we are keeping people first in the Smart Cities enterprise. And so my partners in this are Matthew Hause, of course, who's in front of you, and then Lars-Olof Kihlström from Syntell. So smart cities, we'll start off with a definition of what a smart city is. And a smart city really is a moving target, to be sure. The technologies are rapidly being introduced into cities, either at the municipal level or by supporting organizations or by public organizations. And all of this is contributing to what is becoming a smart environment that we have in our municipalities. So early in the smart cities domain, we saw a tremendous influx of technology providers, solution providers, IBM and Hitachi, and many of these enterprises would bring in their solution to a municipality with the intent of making the city smart, and it would fix all the problems. So municipalities jumped on this opportunity, of course, and said, let's give this a try and see what happens. And quickly they realized that they were not achieving the success that they had hoped with this smart technology. And a lack of success really diminished the concept of smart cities for a while, and some places even have gone away from using the term smart cities. Kansas City, for example, where I live, now has an emerging technologies board and has completely migrated away from smart cities because there was such a lack of success that had happened around these implementations. So since we are in INCOSE, and many of you are familiar with INCOSE, I see a lot of my friends. James Martin, nice to see you today. I won't tell you why we jumped into this, but INCOSE did, and as knowing that a city is a system of systems, an enterprise system, it's complex and complicated and meets all of these wicked problem definitions that we love as systems engineers to get our hands around. But what we have within INCOSE is a tremendous network of working groups. We have enabling systems engineering working groups, we have domain-specific working groups, and all of this knowledge contained within this INCOSE working groups, we wanted to be able to leverage that and bring that to a smart city in a formalized and systematic way. So at INCOSE, our smart cities effort is an initiative, which means we kind of need to bring in all of these different working groups from within INCOSE. And after we got started, we quickly realized that we could not only work within INCOSE, that we needed to be far more collaborative outside of INCOSE as well. And so we have relationships with IEEE. We are working with the IEC specifically on standards development. We are working with municipalities to start to understand what their requirements are and how we can, as systems engineers, better support what they're trying to do. And then there are quite a few smart cities organizations that do outreach and support for smart cities. And so we're collaborating with them as well to start understanding where we can, again, best provide our support and help inform successful progress and development of smart cities as they go on. So what we're trying to do, we have a purpose. Our purpose is to support communities. And we all live in communities. So we want to be able to take the concepts, applications, technology, and services that are used in a smart city, leverage our systems engineering tools and principles in order to provide benefit for those communities. Ultimately, our goal is to create a smart cities model that illustrates the resources that municipalities can jump into and understand how their systems are interconnected, how they can make opportunities of reuse, and to create some consistency even within one municipal organization. So that is our ultimate goal. As we were trying to understand the context again of the smart city and understand what our user requirements would be, and we were watching almost unfold in front of us this depreciation of the term smart cities when we started getting into this. And you'll see this article here is from February of 2021, so nearly 3 years ago now. We see that the chief innovator officer from the city of Carlsbad, California, which is a small community just north of San Diego, actually came out and said that the smart city has nothing to do with technology, it has to do with people. And this, although be it one term and one person, really seems to be the theme that we were starting to see unfold over the past few years. And we recognize the importance of people within a city, and that technology just applied for technology's sake is not going to benefit anybody. So fast forward to last week, and we can see that some of the smart cities advertisers are actually commenting and talking about how the people first plans and people forward focuses are taking a forefront and a lead within the smart cities communication more recently, which is a great shift, and we're really excited within INCOSE to be part of this. So moving forward, we realized that we needed a common definition for a smart city, that there really wasn't a whole bunch of consistency within the smart cities domain, and we recognized that it's really pretty complicated to come up with a consistent definition for a smart city, because what a smart city in Topeka, Kansas may be is far different than what a smart city criteria for Singapore may be. And so there's got to be a way to reconcile those and to evaluate the smartness of a city against itself, and to understand how well that smart city is operating within the context of other smart cities. So we have come up with a definition, and this is our INCOSE Smart City definition of what a smart city is. We believe that this provides for evaluation and comparison of municipalities regardless of size and technological capabilities. So we'll walk through this real quick, but a smart city is capable of identifying its problems. Number one, let's start there. Number two, mitigating the root causes of those problems by generating and processing. Now we're starting to get into some of that technology solution. And then really we're getting into the technology is this engineered quality data in a continuous and inclusive manner. We believe that this definition can be applicable across any scope or breadth of a city. So proceeding forward with this, we also recognize that we needed to define what those human fundamental needs are. Since we are focusing on the human at the center of the city, we needed to leverage a framework for evaluating human fundamental needs. And there was an economist, Max Neef, back in the 1970s, who developed what he calls this set of human fundamental needs. This may look like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that some of you may have heard about. And we like this model for human needs better. Maslow's hierarchy of needs really prioritizes and says that shelter may be more important than education. And we don't believe that. People live in municipalities for some or all of these reasons, and it is not necessarily incumbent on the municipality to provide all of these services for the human, but humans join together and live in community so that they can have subsistence, protection, affection, understanding, participation, so that they can think freely and be creative and encouraged, and so that they can have identity and self-expression and freedom of choice. Now, we also recognize as an international body that these are not all enabled across all platforms and all governmental organizations, and that's okay. So we are operating that these are human fundamental needs, and whether the municipality chooses to support them or not is up to that municipality. But these are fundamental and the basis for our evaluation and what we are trying to do moving forward as INCOSE. So to document all of this, and I did see a quick question, is this available? We do have a website, and there's a QR code that you'll find at the end of this presentation. We would love to have you join with us in our initiative. You can get more details about what we're doing. We are putting together a publication, and shortly we'll have this published that includes our definition, includes a framework for evaluating smart cities, and it includes some metrics that we are also proposing that cities can use and select from to evaluate their smartness. But that's really fun, and that provides a great foundation for moving forward with what we really want to do, which is create a model that municipalities can use and engage with to help solve some of their biggest problems. And I'm so grateful to Matthew Hause, who's about to share with you a bit of how we have approached modeling a smart city problem. Matthew?
Looking at homeless issue and thought, okay, what technology can I use? And got about 20 minutes into it and said, this is dumb. I don't understand the people. How in the world am I going to start identifying technology? And in the end, I further constrained myself and said, I'm only going to use the personnel views from the UAF to express everything. I did trace it to capabilities and some of the strategy sections, but the actual model of the environment or et cetera is organizations, people, posts, competencies, behavior, et cetera. So it's a different take. And the reason was, again, to keep it human-centered. Next slide. So here's our example. Again, everybody knows the homeless issues that are going out. I just recently changed it also. I'm using unhoused persons because this is considered a better term. I'm thinking, okay, if people are going to get offended, that's the last thing we need. So I used unhoused people, housing insecurity, etc. throughout. And we just update this. Anyways, the city recognizes that they can't outlaw homelessness, as it were, people living on the streets. Instead, they need to jump down and figure out what are the root causes. Why are people behaving the way they are? Why have they decided to live the way they are? And can we try to look at, number one, housing, treatment, counseling, and education, rather than either arresting them or just removing them or hiding the problem? So it's trying to take a more direct approach. Next slide. So we start out, again, everyone recognizes this is the OV1 from DODAF. It's a high-level concept diagram that says, okay, here's my unhoused person at the center, and they've got all these interactions. It also looks at cross interactions as well. In other words, if I'm a tourist, what facilities do I look at? What are the interactions between these? Where are the conflicts that can take place in this organization, and what are the organizations, people, systems, etc., that are affected as a part of this? And this is going to help us to frame the solution. And again, it uses the graphics so that literally anyone can understand it. Next slide. We then said, what are we trying to accomplish? What are our goals in terms of the smart city? So we said, the resident experience, we looked at a few, what are the things that smart cities or cities of all types want? And then we looked at, okay, how are we going to attack some of these issues? So resident experience, Ottoville is going to provide services to residents in a consistent and efficient manner. It's going to adopt green and environmentally friendly measures. Again, this is all motherhood and apple pie so far. And it says we're now on to the Enterprise Goal 3. We're going to work with state, federal, governments, and also civics, charity organization, and anyone who wishes to help to provide shelter and security for people. So we're starting out with our job is to provide shelter. Next, we want a safe and pleasant environment for residents and visitors. We want to ensure the financial health of the city. So, for instance, recently San Francisco was spending something like $100,000 or $200,000 per unhoused persons. And obviously, we're not going to be able to sustain that for very long. So we're looking at how do we make this more cost effective and also effective in terms of helping the people. We're also going to look at addiction rehabilitation, and then finally, as you see there, trying to get permanent houses. Some places have tiny homes, etc. But first, we're going to understand. Next slide. So do next slide 3 times. So we're going to break this up into phases. So our first one is to collect unhoused statistics. So we're going to look at what are the statistics, what are the circumstances, how big is our problem, what sort of budgets do we have, etc. Next, we're going to increase shelter capacity. So we've identified the problem. The next phase is we're going to ramp up shelter capacity so people have someone to go. Then we're going to look at providing permanent housing. And we're also, as a part of this, you'll see later, going to be looking at providing education, addiction treatment, and the rest of this. More to come. Next slide. So the first thing we did, and this was Jennifer's idea, I had my slide presentation in a different order. She said, let's concentrate on the people first. Now, everyone is unique. Everyone has unique aspects, attributes, capabilities, backgrounds, etc. But of course, modeling means we try to generalize at least some of these aspects that are pertinent to the problem that we're trying to solve. So we have at the top our unhoused person, and on the left and the right of the orange box at the top, we've got on the left, what is their current housing? Shelter, tents, whatever it is. And then on the right, what are the causes? And again, we would build up these views. So we have mental health, unemployment, PTSD. And then for the attributes, we've said, okay, there's going to be a primary and a secondary cause, because generally there's more than one reason why someone decides to live on the streets. And also, how long have they been? Where do they reside? What's their age? Do they have a criminal history? Do they have mental health issues? These sorts of things. And then doing some research, we found there are many types of unhoused people, but there's chronic, episodic, transitional, and hidden. Hidden being no one knows they're unhoused because they're staying on people's couches or sleeping in their cars, etc., and you're not aware. And then we looked at what are some of the attributes for this. So this would be what we might recommend to someone as part of building up a database of this. Next slide. And then we looked at what are the capabilities that we currently have. And again, this is capabilities the city already does. But in addition, it's what are the ones that are going to actually enable the unhoused people to actually help themselves and for us to help them as well. And so again, housing provision, law enforcement, health services, shelter provision, so on and so forth. So we looked at the highest level capability because again, if you model capabilities, then you can look at what are all the multiple ways to satisfy them. Rather than starting with the systems, we can then start to categorize these, and it gives us more flexibility to create completely new systems and organizations as well. Next. We then started mapping the different organizations, and again, no systems yet, to the different facilities that we have. So for addiction treatment, Alcoholics Anonymous and a detox clinic, adult education, community colleges, vocational training, for crisis interventions, community health, Samaritans, for mental health, a mental health hospital. And again, we would go through these working with the subject matter experts and building this up over time. Next. Oh, sorry, yes. So again, identifying the people before the technology. So here's an example of all the different types of healthcare organizations. And again, via the inheritance, I would map at the very top, okay, what capacity do each of these elements have? Who are the different people in each of these organizations? What additional capabilities do they have? What functions do they perform? Again, specifically generated towards the unhoused people. Next. We also looked at government organizations, voluntary organizations. And again, you can break this down and see what are the different characteristics, how do they help us? And again, we've limited it to just those interacting with unhoused people because there'll be a lot of organizations, etc. Next slide. Then specifically, we looked at what are the events that takes place in a unhoused person's life. And on the left, we have the negative events. On the right, we have the positive events. So as the song goes, we're going to eliminate the negative, accentuate the positive, right? So next slide. We then built up this state diagram. Now, initially, it was white on a white background, as it were, and nothing jumps out at you. So we thought, well, let's add some color. And as you see, we've got all the positive types of events or states of the person in green, the negative ones in red. So if you're arrested, you're about to be sentenced, or you're incarcerated, or just simply unhoused, we're not looking at this as good things. However, if you are in addiction treatment, in mental health treatment, etc., these are good things. So our intention is, how do we actually make sure that we can get people into this? For the negative transitions, which are the red ones, is there a way to mitigate this, to prevent this? In SysML and UAF, as you know, these are guard conditions. Can we insert technologies? Also, this documents what our idea is. For instance, to get into mental health or addiction treatment, mental health specifically, you have to go be arrested and try to go to jail. And that's not good. Sorry, I got 3 more minutes and then he's going to cut me off. So I'm going to keep going. So again, accentuate the positive. Next slide. We then looked at, okay, again, here's our unhoused person. Here are all the organizations. Here are all the elements. How in the world are they going to cope with this? And so I got to here in the model and I said, we need something, some organization, a capability to deal with this, specifically dedicated to doing this. Next slide. And one more slide forward. And in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see we have a new capability called Unhoused Management. That is made up of the Unhoused Persons Service. We have industry outreach experts, multiple outreach experts, a manager of it, and specifically we have a case manager. We looked at what are the different competencies they require, what are the functions they can do. Again, we're building this up as a job description. And then we looked at what are the risks. Obviously, there's going to be a risk of violence. So how do we mitigate this? What are our security controls? Again, we're making use of the different aspects of UAF. The other one is job burnout. My sister was a social worker for a while, and she said that was one of the biggest issues that they had. And so the mitigation we've got is they're going to go through mandatory monthly training. So again, we would apply the same sort of risk and mitigation to our state chart we defined earlier and say, how do we prevent these things from happening? What are the risks? Okay, keep going. Next slide, sorry. And then we looked at, okay, how do we actually do this? How do we fund this? What's our strategy? So we made use of the new additions that we had called, which are opportunity, challenges, and drivers. And we looked at, okay, what are the different types of drivers? What are the different elements? So again, we looked at the capability of addiction treatment, which is impacted by opioid settlement funds. This is motivated by the challenge to reduce addiction, and our drivers are unhoused deaths, increase of unhoused people, and the opioid epidemic. Same thing for reduced crime. Can we actually get community liaison officers as well as the police? And can we fund these with the COVID funds as part of what we're trying to do? government's been giving out money, so let's see if we can take advantage of this. And again, this interacts with our unhoused people. So it's trying to build a strategy, including how the heck do we pay for this? One more slide. And then we've got a set of metrics. What are we trying to measure? What does success look like, etc.? And one final slide. So we're looking and trying to understand. Our next phase is to talk to social workers, to talk to the people who are the subject matter experts. I've got a couple members of my own family that work with unhoused people and say, what do we get wrong? How do we improve things? If you were going to intervene, where would you? And then look at the technologies available and say, how do we actually make use of this? So again, start with the people, then the process, then the tools. I used to sell MBSE tools, people process tools. It's the same darn thing. So we need to do the people first, understand the problem, the process, what goes on, how does this work, and then look at the technology and see how it can help. Understand before we propose solutions. And I'm out of time.
Yeah. Like we can take one. I know you're on mute, but yeah, let's take one.
There was one in the chat too.
Yeah, Matthew will be here.
Okay, just real quick. So in 7 years, 1 out of every 4 people will be over the age of 65. And so what they're doing, what you're talking about is using autonomous cars because, they said there's not enough people to take care of their parents. So that's one of the one. And then the other one is electric driven vertical takeoff and lift aircraft. And that is also to help the global supply chain. So that's also part of the Smart Cities Initiative, because in order to help with the cargo and then also, transporting passengers in using the regional airports across the United States. So that's already happening.
By the way, that's Maria Romero. I've done the initial modeling, and she has volunteered to be the lead modeler. I'll still be involved, etc. So if anyone wants to join, as it said in the previous slide, please feel free to join in. If you've got great ideas or personal experience, either with family or friends or relatives, again, understanding the stories behind these and how it can help is what the Smart Cities Initiative is all about. Okay, thank you very much.